Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Thursday, March the 11th, 2021. On this episode of the Politicrat, Sarah Everard.
I want to start by saying that my thoughts and prayers are with Sarah Everard's family and her friends at this incredibly difficult and painful time. As you are aware, a man has been arrested on suspicion of Sarah's murder. This evening, detectives and search teams investigating Sarah's disappearance have found, very sadly, what appears to be human remains. The discovery was made in an area of woodland in Ashford in Kent. As you can imagine, at this early stage, we are not able to confirm any identity, and indeed, that may take us some considerable time. Specialist officers have been with Sarah's family to update them on the investigation and to continue to give them the best support we possibly can. The news today that it was a Metropolitan Police officer who was arrested on suspicion of Sarah's murder has sent shockwaves and anger through the public and through the Met. I speak on behalf of all my colleagues when I say that we are utterly appalled at this dreadful, dreadful news. Our job is to patrol the streets and to protect people. Sarah's disappearance in these awful and wicked circumstances, I know, are every family's worst nightmare. Londoners will want to know that it is thankfully incredibly rare for a woman to be abducted from our streets. But I completely understand that despite that, women in London and the wider public, perhaps particularly those in the area where Sarah went missing, will be worried and may be feeling scared. You should expect to see continued increased police patrols in the area, as well, of course, as continued large-scale investigative activity. Please do report any concerns you may have, whatever they may be, to us.
Welcome back. You just heard from the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police in the United Kingdom, Dame Cressida Dick. Commissioner Cressida Dick became the police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police in 2017. The Metropolitan Police in England have existed since 1829. They operate in London and Thames Valley, roughly around the area of London and just around the Greater London area. And they do have jurisdiction in the United Kingdom, particularly in England, and matter areas thereabouts and after and everything else. The Metropolitan Police, their headquarters is at New NEW Scotland Yard, which is not far from Westminster in central London, in England. The Metropolitan Police, founded in 1829, almost 200 years ago. And in all that time, they have had one female police commissioner. And that is who you just heard from on that audio. Dame Commissioner Cressida Dick, the only female ever to be police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. I start there for a very specific reason. Institutions speak volumes. I'm going to speak about Sarah Everard. I'm going to speak about her. But I want to start with these institutions, because that's really going to be a lot of where my commentary is going to be, dear listener, during the course of this episode of the podcast. The institutions, the culture, the patriarchy, the society, that's really where we should be looking. But I'm also going to look at men. I'm going to look at me. The fact that the Metropolitan Police, in almost 200 years of its existence, have had just one female police commissioner speaks volumes. Dame Cressida Dick became the Metropolitan Police Commissioner in 2017, just 4 years ago, almost exactly 4 years ago, actually. She took the job officially, started the job in April of 2017. So we are a few weeks away from exactly 4 years. She had, I believe, been named as commissioner in February of that same year, 2017. So in that case, we're just over 4 years from her being named as the police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. I remember the Metropolitan Police very clearly. In England, born there, grew up there, raised there, and I know a lot about the Metropolitan Police, not because I've been in trouble with them, I haven't, but because there have been a lot of things over the years with the Metropolitan Police that black people can testify to. I can go back to the 1960s with the Mangrove 7 and police, the Metropolitan Police, who would come in there to black businesses and destroy them, completely destroy them for nothing, just because they could and because the racists in the Metropolitan Police Department could do so. So they did. You had white male police officers doing that, destroying the business. And there was a whole trial around this. And nearly all of the Mangrove 7 was successful in overturning their convictions. If I remember correctly, I think Darcus Howe was one of the 7 of the Mangrove 7 in London who had been under such assault, destroying businesses, beating up black people, arresting black people for nothing. Okay? Nothing. That's the Metropolitan Police. The same police department that has had exactly one female police commissioner in its nearly 200 years. Cressida Dick, the commissioner, said in that statement that you heard, which had some slight edits to it. And she said at one point that I want to reassure women in London and in surrounding areas that it is safe. That there is very rare that, I'm paraphrasing, it's very rare that there are abductions of women. So that troubled me that she had to even say that. Because on the one hand, perhaps to the average person just casually listening to that, they probably thought, oh, this is reassurance. This is the female police commissioner of the Metropolitan Police in London reassuring or trying to reassure women of all backgrounds that it's very rare that women are abducted in London. But that really isn't the point, is it? Whether it's rare or whether it's a bloomin' epidemic, because I would contend, dear listener, that it's been going on forever. I don't understand why Dame Cressida Dick had to say that, by the way. I just don't. But that's a whole nother thing. Why is there this rush to defend something when it's so clear that the Metropolitan Police have some major problems? I haven't even got to who I think is the perpetrator. I'm going to say alleged for the purposes of this, but I think this person did it. I'll get to him. But I'm not going to get to him before I get to Sarah Everard. I am so sorry. Sarah Everard. Sarah Everard was 33 years of age. Now I say was, even though it has not been confirmed that she is deceased. Sarah Everard was a white female who, and I mention her race for a reason that I'm going to contextualize in a few minutes. In fact, I'll do it now. I mention that because on this podcast I have, and forgive me for sounding defensive, I have previously covered women of all backgrounds, whether there's issues of crime and injustice or anything else. I did this with Breonna Taylor. I did this with Summer Taylor. I did this with Sandra Bland. So I do want to make it clear, as with others, all of the people I've just mentioned are either women, or I should say were women, or gender fluid individuals, or people who regarded themselves as not belonging to a gender. I've talked about black trans women. And again, forgive me for sounding defensive preemptively here, but I do want to make that clear. Because had this been a black woman, or a trans woman, or a black trans woman, or a white trans woman, or a queer woman, I would have covered this event. I would have talked about it. And these things happen daily here in this country, the US of A, and everywhere else. Sarah Everard was 33 years of age, and again, I say that because even though it's not been confirmed that she has been found dead, this news last night of remains, unidentified at this point, but remains being found in Kent, which is in a county outside of London, a city outside of London, I should say, that is not far from the home. This is where the home of the alleged perpetrator is. The fact that remains have been found and Sarah Everard had been missing for exactly 1 week does not bode well. Does not bode well for Sarah's family. Obviously also for Sarah herself. So I think I should properly begin by sending my deepest condolences at these very difficult hours for the family of Sarah Everard, and by extension for the families of anyone at all who has gone through, has experienced this shocking, horrific loss. Someone murdered, someone taken like this. She was walking from a friend's house around the area of Clapham Junction, that's C-L-A-P-H-A-M, Clapham Junction. That's in South London, just around southwest London. And she was walking. She took a longer route home. She decided that she's going to walk home after leaving her friends. And she walked down the most well-lit path. And she took this extra long route, not any shortcuts, nothing like that. She did everything that every woman does. And somewhere along the way, she never made it back home. She never did. Somebody interrupted her journey home. And she has now been missing for 7, 8 or so days now. 8 days at least. Since it's now March 11th, that would be 8 days. I'm trying to really stifle my anger and my hurt and sorrow for any woman who goes through these things on a daily basis, whether they end up as it seems so sadly and horrifically that Sarah Everard obviously has, or whether they do not. Whether a woman has a close call, a brush with some male perpetrator, or literally looks back on the day and goes, woof, I came incredibly close to being assaulted or raped or killed. Every woman goes through that, where she reviews the end of her day perhaps, or maybe a moment in her day, and just thinks back to how close she came to being attacked, to being killed, to being raped. Or, worse than that, experiencing being attacked or being raped. This has got to stop, folks. We have got to do better. And I'm going to talk about men right now. I include myself in this. We have failed. Men have failed. And one of the reasons we have failed is because this is a patriarchy. It's a straight white male patriarchy, a straight white male patriarchy. But nonetheless, men of all groups have male privilege. And if we're not using it to stand up and be counted, to fight back against men who do these heinous things to our fellow human beings, if we're not fighting back against men who do this to women, who do this to girls, we've failed. And we're culpable too. We are even complicit. Now, I'd like to think that I speak out strongly against these heinous acts. And I do speak out strong. And I've done the work, and I'm continuing to. Educating boys and men. Trying to get them to unlearn. And I'm not trying to lionize myself. Something is better than nothing. However, more must be done. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. We have to step up. We have to. This is the society we live in. And we've got to do more. And I'm talking to men. I include myself in this. Because how could you not? Our job right now as men, to the men listening to this, is that we cannot settle and we cannot rest until we continue to rigorously educate and transform and get men and boys to unlearn this violence and this toxic masculinity and challenge the patriarchy that absolutely doles it out. Because we can't do that unless we start to unlearn all of these behaviors. And we can't do that if we are failing to, at the minimum, speak up and speak out. This isn't about men protecting women. Women, I'm sure, are quite able to stand up for themselves. I don't think that women necessarily want us as men to be their shield. Although I dare say, in the same breath, that a great many women probably feel a little bit more comfortable when they are with a man who treats them with respect and who doesn't violate them. As men, we have to do more. I have to do more. What is happening and what has happened for centuries is unacceptable. And we cannot continue this way. We cannot turn our backs. Whether it's trans women, particularly black trans women, brown trans women, queer women, black women, white women, any woman, Asian women, Native women, we cannot turn around and pretend. We cannot. As men, we've got to be better. We've got to be better. You have to challenge yourself to be better. Right now. This cannot go on anymore. No more excuses. No more excuses. We have got to be better. As men, we must. And I'm telling you right now, not only are we not doing enough, but we are absolutely culpable for the climate and for the Sarah Everards, the Breonna Taylors, the Tawana Brawleys. And in each of those three instances, I've mentioned them, all of them were they were all killed by police. And all by white male police. Although Tawana Brawley was not killed, she was viciously raped and assaulted. I don't want to hear people talking about how, it was a hoax. No, it wasn't. This is about power as well. This is about power. And we have to do better. We are culpable as men. Even if we haven't done anything like this. And I shouldn't even be putting the word even anywhere in that. But never mind the fact that you may have never done this, and I hope to fuck you haven't. In your life. Because I know my conscience is clear. I have never, ever laid a hand on a woman. Ever. I've never done it. And I'm not sitting here trying to be anything. But that doesn't mean that I'm not culpable in some way. And even if I am in a different country. We are all on this big planet together. And we are all citizens of the world. I reject this notion, you're no longer a citizen of this. You're no longer, you used to live here. Or we're citizens of the planet. Screw all these distinctions. I don't want to hear from these people online. I don't want to hear from the hashtag brigade. That not all men bullcrap. It's bullshit. All men bear culpability. I'm telling you. And if we're really being brutally honest, that's what we would be saying about this. The society does. The institutions do. The media. which isn't in England right now as I speak. At the time I record this, at least. Showing photos on television of the alleged perpetrator, who is a police officer in the Metropolitan Police. Sky News is not showing photos or the name of this guy who has been arrested. Oh, we can't show it on television. Our lawyers have told us not to. Well, I'm going to tell you as a lawyer that I'm going to give you this guy's name because that matters. And it ties in with the fact that he is part of an institution called the Metropolitan Police. That same institution that has only had one female police commissioner in its almost 200 year history. Let me tell you something about this piece of garbage that was arrested on Tuesday. Wayne Couzens, 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 48 years of age, arrested at his home in Deal, as in let's make a deal. That's the town in Kent, on suspicion of kidnapping and murder of Sarah Everard. A woman should be allowed and afforded the freedom to walk wherever the hell she wants. It's not even a should. A woman must be able to walk, jog, run, whatever she wants to do at any time of the day or night. And I'm not trying to be naive. I'm not. Because I know what the realities are in a world like this. There's so many Sarah Everards. And you know what is even as horrifying, if not more so? A woman isn't even safe in her damn home because there's some man that's in beating her. Domestic violence, beating her. And I mean, where is a woman safe? I want you to answer that question for me. Wayne Couzens, 48 years old. Oh, he's part of the VIP Parliamentary Protection and Diplomacy Protection Unit. He carries a machine gun. Don't you know? He carries a machine gun around, and he's vetted, you know. So, don't you think the institution should be arresting itself if they've vetted him? That means surely he doesn't have any kind of record of violating and brutalizing women now. Surely they never found anything on his record. Or did they expunge his record? Did his record have something on it? Are we going to find out that there was something on his record and they expunged it? Because surely this was not his first rodeo. Do you really think that if this guy is the person who actually did do this, and if it does come out that he indeed did kidnap and murder Sarah Everard, do you think, dear listener, that this is his first rodeo? Do you think that this is the first time that he has viciously attacked and killed a woman? This guy had a lot of power. He defends and protects VIPs and diplomats and parliamentary figures. He's in the elite parliamentary and diplomatic protection command. Armed and vetted. Is it really that shocking that an institution that has had only one female police commissioner in its nearly 200 years of existence would have a man who is a police officer who would be given this kind of power and most likely have killed a woman? Would that be really that shocking? And I am not minimizing the evil of this act against Sarah Everard. I am not doing that. Wayne Couzens is a white male. He is a father of 2. He is married. The woman to whom he is married is roughly, well, I guess in her 30s, a few years younger, 15 years younger. Sarah Everard is 15 years younger. And this guy's wife is around the same age as Sarah Everard. Not that that means anything, but it's just information for you to digest. She too, by the way, his wife has been arrested as well on suspicion of aiding and abetting a kidnapping and accessory to murder. This is the thing that I sit here with. That you've got Sky News lawyers, probably a male lawyer, could be a female lawyer as well, saying, oh, we can't show in our press preview, we can't show, we're actually blotting out the name and picture of this person. Oh, because of privacy. And I get it, there's libel laws in England and Britain, they're strict, and I get that. But come on now. The fact that you have to be protecting violent men or allegedly violent men is exactly the issue. Exactly the issue. It's as plain as the nose on your face. The mere fact that the system is such that you are protecting an alleged murderer, male, cop. Oh, we don't want to put his name out there. When there have been instances where people, black, have had their names plastered in newspapers, plastered, faces plastered. And by the way, his face is on newspapers in England. It's just that the cable networks on TV, and maybe the broadcast ones too. I've not had a chance to look at BBC or ITV or Channel 4, but I have looked at Sky. It's available worldwide. And Sky, which is on YouTube, Sky News, that is, have had black marks on the photos and on the name of this guy. I'm going to link to a story that contains his name and his goddamn picture. Let me tell you something. The Metropolitan Police would not have arrested this person Wayne Couzens if they didn't have some blooming confidence about his role in the murder of Sarah Everard. I am fed up of the excuses. I am fed up of men and some women. Well, she shouldn't have walked out there late at night. These not all men #bastards who refuse to look at themselves and blame women for their own death, their own murders. And I hear people on TVs, oh, well, she wasn't out all that late at night. I'm going to play you that clip in a few minutes. Oh, she wasn't out all that late at night. It was around 9 and she's walking. So what if she had been out at midnight? What if she'd been out at 1 in the morning? Would there have been a reaction from you? Andrew Pierce of the Daily Mail. Would that have been something that you would have talked about? Oh, she was out at 1 a.m. I don't give a fuck if she was out at 3 in the morning. A woman must be allowed to come and go as she pleases. Black woman, trans woman, white woman, Asian woman, Latina, Native woman, Indian, you name it, any woman. Queer, non-gender conforming, I don't care who. That is not the issue. Any woman should be allowed, must be allowed to come and go as she pleases. And every man must not only just respect that to begin with on its face, that's obvious, and every man must do everything to ensure that that is what happens. All a woman is asking for is to be left alone and to live and to make her life and to be autonomous and independent. Leave a woman alone. If the woman is going to engage with you, that's up to her. It is not up to you. And all of this mansplaining and this bullcrap. Oh, she was walking at 9 o'clock. Oh, it wasn't that late. As if somehow, if it was a little later than 9 o'clock, it would have fucking justified this. I keep talking, dear listener, about language. I keep talking about language and what I say about language. We keep talking this oppressor language, this patriarchy language, this language that blames the survivor and not the predator. And the sirens are ringing out. We are in real crisis. We've been in crisis for hundreds of years. The sirens ring out. And is anyone going to answer the sirens? Sarah Everard should have, in a society that is not misogynist or violent against women or discriminatory against women or patriarchal, straight male hetero patriarchy, should have been able to make it home. But there are all these violent men around. Think about all the different things. If you're a man listening to me right now, think of all the different things that a woman has to do to get from A to B that you don't have to do. The male privilege that men have, that we as men have, has to be looked at. And we have to actually think about the advantages we have. And let's start using the privilege that we as men have to make sure that women, to every part of our ability, don't have to be going through this. They don't have to be. We have got to be better. Think about all the things that a woman has to do that you do not. That a woman has to worry about when she leaves the premises of anywhere. And let me tell you, this garbage about, well, it was relatively early. It was just after 9 o'clock. And oh, what a shame. This could have happened at 2 p.m. It happens at 2 p.m. It happens in broad daylight. It does not matter how late or early it was. This is the same garbage that was thrown at Desiree Washington. Oh, but Desiree Washington, she should have known. If you go up to Mike Tyson's hotel room at 2 a.m, at 3 a.m, you know what you're getting into. Give me a fucking break.
We check out the front pages. Let's start with the Daily Mail, leading with today's main story that a Metropolitan Police officer has been arrested on suspicion of kidnap and murder after Sarah Everard disappeared from South London a week ago. Grim find as cop is arrested. The Metro has the same, reporting human remains have been discovered. PC held for murder as body found, says The Sun. The Telegraph has the same story, although, as you can see, Sky News is not naming the suspect or showing photos of him for legal reasons, hence the black marks on your page there.
Anna Botting on Sky News last night during the Sky Papers press preview segment when she talked about the headlines on the various newspapers for Thursday. And she's explaining, as you just heard, well, we've blacked out the name and the photo. It's just ridiculous. I know why they have to do it. I get why they have to do it, but come on. This is about protecting violent men. And I know some of you are going to say, well, innocent until proven guilty, blah, blah, blah. Of course. But this is a white man they're arresting, right? So there's every reason for me to believe if they're arresting this particular white man, they have a pretty damn good idea that he did this. Versus when they arrest black folk, black men, any black man will do, as far as I can see, as far as I know as a black man. I can certainly say that. But if they have arrested this man, who is one of their own, as they say in English football chants, he's one of our own. If the Metropolitan Police can do that, arrest one of their own, they must have a pretty goddamn good idea that he is the person, Wayne Couzens, who kidnapped and killed. And I'm sorry to the parents and to the family of Sarah Everard. I am so sorry that you've lost someone, a tender, dear member of your family. This is really painful, and I can't imagine the pain you're going through. I can only empathize, and I'm so sorry that you've lost someone dear, that you love, that you hold, that you care about so deeply. They would not have arrested Wayne Couzens he who has all this experience, they would not have arrested Wayne Couzens, the VIP paramilitary parliamentary diplomatic protector with a machine gun, if they didn't have a pretty damn damn idea that he did this. And then to act so shocked. All the filth that's in the ranks of power, all the filthy men who are in the ranks of power all over the globe, and you're going to be surprised now and shocked. Like institutions don't do these horrible, evil things to people. Were you shocked when black person after black person was being shot down like a dog? Were you shocked when Mark Duggins was shot down like a dog by the Metropolitan Police a few years ago? And that other brother who was choked to death in a store a few years ago? That brother? Were you shocked then that the Metropolitan Police did that? Were you shocked? Or was it only in this situation? It's an absolute betrayal of common sense and your own sense of self-worth to pretend that somehow this is such a shock when you've got violent people in all kinds of occupations on this planet. I hate to break it to you, but there are violent people, violent men in particular, who are in positions of power at your workplace, in the governor's office in New York State, in the presidency of the United States, in the House of Commons. My goodness me, when Mark Field, the Conservative MP, say a couple of years ago, put his hands around the neck or dragged out by the neck a woman who was protesting during a session at Mansion House, some speech, some black tie event or whatever it was. Were you shocked? This has been going on for centuries. White men in power abusing women, attacking women, calling black people the N this and N that. Come on. And were you surprised when you heard people saying about the former Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, that he bullied? And that Priti Patel bullied people, violated the ministerial... Come on, there are these kinds of violent people in power. Come on. Oh, we're shocked. You see, that's the media response, part of a larger institution itself. You know, the institution that doesn't want to reveal the name and the photo of Wayne Couzens. Because we have to worry about libel. We have to worry about libel. And that outweighs the public's right to know. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. It's going to come out that this is the guy who did this. It's going to come out. I'm telling you, Commissioner Cressida Dick knows, I believe, already that this is the man that did this. This is the scumbag who killed Sarah Everard. I'm telling you. And if you looked, and I'm going to link to the video, if you looked at that video as you heard the video earlier, and you looked in her face, you could tell that she already knew. It seems very clear to me that she is very much aware that the Metropolitan Police have arrested not only one of their own, but that they have the right person who did this. And they've also arrested the guy's wife. And they've also found human remains. It's been 8 days. I'm no forensic expert or forensic pathologist or anything like that. But as an attorney, but even so as a layperson, I don't have to be a forensic pathologist or anything like that to know that there's some kind of proximity there. 8 days missing, arrests, 2 arrests. I mean, listen, this is really, we need to get justice in this case for this young woman. Listen, whether she's young or old, we need to get justice for Sarah Everard. We need to have that for her family. And we need that for any woman whatsoever, whether they are a trans woman, a black trans woman, as I say, whether it's a black woman who's straight, whether it is a queer woman, whether it's a person who is non-gender conforming, whether it is whomever. Justice. We must have it. And this is going to be very difficult for the family of Sarah Everard. And anybody else who's been in this position as a family member, who's lost a child. Sarah Everard. All she was doing was walking. All she was doing was living her life. All she was doing was trying to go home. I'm going to link to a tip line from the UK about any other information, if anybody has seen any information or anything. I believe it's Crime Stoppers. And I'm going to put that in the liner notes of this episode. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.